All right, everybody. So, welcome to the next or sub series in the my Ride Watch series, where I'm going to go over this time Kamen Rider Kuuga. Basically, this is going to be over about 7 episodes because, uh, compared to my watches of Agito, Kabuto, and Zets, this series has luckily been released on Blu-ray over here in the States, and rather than just streaming on YouTube with subtitles. So yeah, and each disc of the Shout Factory release of this series has 7 episodes on them. So yeah, so I'm just going to be watching through the series and doing that. I'm going to be watching through the series without the Grongi translated subtitles, because Grongi is basically a language that is very similar to Japanese, and as a result, if you know how to translate it, you can pretty much figure out what the Grongi are saying. But I know, or I have it on good authority, that it's probably good to have your first watch through the series be without the Grongi subtitles on, especially since, well, Japanese kids and other people that watched Kuuga would have seen um, the series um, without the Grongi being translated. So yeah, at the very least, where it's not supposed to be. Um, so yeah, so here we go with episode 1. All right, so this episode actually pretty much gets or hits the ground running with how it does the plot stuff and how it definitely wants to establish this Kamen Rider in a more modern context of the time, which was the early 2000s. Specifically, this series was initially being planned out with Shotaro Ishinomori being part of the production. I'm assuming as a producer, as well as laying out some like creative decisions with the story and some of the characters and everything. However, he died a few years before the series was released, let alone went into production. So, or went into production, let alone released. I believe he died in '98. This series would have gone into production in 1999, and then it would have premiered in 2000. So, yeah. Funnily enough, Kamen Rider, at the very least at this point, before Decade, I believe, um, premiered with or like Super Sentai premiered very early on in the year, like basically within the first few months of the year, where Super Sentai, I believe, premiered pretty much just in February of each year. Kamen Rider would debut in January, so yeah, that would get slightly muddled with Decade only being 31 episodes, I believe, and a few movies. And then after that, Kamen Rider would start releasing halfway or a little bit over halfway through each year in August. So yeah, so like I said, Shotaro Shinomori was a part of the early production stuff with this series. Obviously, just laying out some probably just basic stuff that he wanted for the series. But as I said, he died before the series went to full production and everything. Thus, it is show written or show ran and written primarily by a different writer, which is Naruhisa Arakawa. And yeah. And if I can be so bold as to say this, in regards to how the series is, it very much reeks of the early 2000s in regards to the filmmaking, the I think the what do you call it, the soundtrack, some of the acting and everything, because they do try to have those drama elements on top of the superhero stuff. That's what they mainly did, and yeah, and I think I said this with Agito. It reminds me of early to mid 2000s, or mid 2000s mainly, because it was secondly filmed in 2004 and then premiered in 2005. But mid 2000s Doctor Who, mainly like series 1 and 2, And also just out of that, mainly Series 1, where they pretty much went over the top with everything in regards to the dramatization of everything. So yeah, and I don't really think, unfortunately, that the series holds up too well in regards to its look, because it was filmed at a higher frame rate. It was filmed at, I think, 25 FPS, or 60 FPS. I can't remember which one, but yeah, just a higher frame rate than 24 FPS. But it was filmed digitally, um, at like either 480p or maybe slightly higher than that. What I'm watching on the Blu-rays is an upscale that Toei did, in the 2010s when they released it on Blu-ray. And I will say the upscaling does help it. It definitely looks better than it probably did on the Toei DVDs, as well as probably the initial broadcast. It is also the first Kamen Rider series to be produced in widescreen, which I think helps. I imagine for the initial broadcasts back in 2000, they would have either cropped or like squished in the image so that, or reframed the image or images so that you didn't miss anything important. But you can tell that they were future proofing this series, by filming and editing it in widescreen, which is good. So, yeah. So, in regards to the plot of the episode, it deals with, like I said, we hit the ground running with these scientists, archaeologists, actually, I think, um, investigating what is basically a mummy that they got from a tomb. We see some flashbacks of this unknown, like, suited person fighting other people or other things, presumably a very long time ago. Eventually, this is shown to be someone using the Kuuga powers and everything. So yeah, and as we see them excavating the mummy, we see the mummy's hand twitch a bit. So yeah, and then eventually we see the mummy come alive and start to attack them, and I believe kill all of them. One of the people down there did have a video camera, so they captured at least some of what was going on. Visually, they didn't capture too much before the camera got, like, I think, like, swiped out of their hand, or they died and thus, like, probably slumped over and everything. But they did manage to capture pretty much everything on audio. And I gotta say, the visual effects that they use for some of the footage where it's all staticky and everything, that's like right out of the early 2000s, because after the advent of like plasma screens, I guess, for or LED TVs, within the late 2000s and early 2010s, we don't really have that anymore. We don't have that for TVs. So yeah, it reminds me of Kingdom Hearts 2, the opening 3 hours of Kingdom Hearts 2, where slowly Sora is gaining back his memories from the first game and everything, and they transition between these with staticky images and everything. Although that's more blatant in regards to the static images because of the fact that it's on a white background with the black static and everything. So yeah, or maybe the other way around. Yeah, I think it's actually the other way around with the black background and white static. But yeah, which was a thing that they did when the game was released in 2005. So that, and then 2006, obviously internationally, because at the time when the PS2 was the thing, people still had, they still had, what is it? Those kind of TVs. I'm trying to remember what the hell they're called. I'm sorry. I'm also a little bit tired, so my brain's not working 100%. But at the very least, I'm not like scatterbrained, which is good. I'll probably remember it as I go through this. But yeah. So when it comes to that, they use the staticky images to portray some of the flashbacks at the beginning and everything, and they have kind of these mysterious images especially as the person in the Kuuga suit gets locked away in the, I guess, sarcophagus that we later see that these archaeologists are finding and everything. So yeah, and they don't heed a warning for looking or for like if they touch it, they'll die. Basically, the sarcophagus. But the lead guy, I think, it says, well, we've already touched it, so no use worrying about it or whatever. So yeah. So then we also see a woman at the nearby university, I believe. I think it's what is it called? The something. I know it's from the original Kamen Rider series and everything. Jushon, some like that. Um, it starts with a J. I just remember that. Sorry. Getting a little bit scatterbrained. I guess I'm getting a little bit scatterbrained, but more so just my memory doesn't want to work. Anyways, so I'll make sure to, as I go through this after the second episode, I will be rested by the time I do another one of these. So, yeah. So we see her, Sakurako Sawatari, and her friend Yusuke Godai. There, he meets up with her at her lab, I think it is, because they're friends, and it seems like he just got back from a trip to Tibet, because we see him in an opening scene where he's at one of the international airports, Narita. He's outside Narita International Airport, which fun fact, there's two international airports in Tokyo or in Japan. They're both in Tokyo or near Tokyo, Narita and Haneda. Haneda is closer to Tokyo, but Narita I think is bigger. But yeah, I have landed at both and left from both when I was going to and coming back from Japan. The year before I'm originally recording this, in 2025. So yeah, both times I went with some friends. So yeah, that's actually really, really cool. That I was able to recognize that and everything. So yeah, we see him in kind of a POV shot where they're kind of establishing his personality to the audience, but early on, but he's actually talking to a little kid who has gotten separated from his parents, and so basically, he's trying to cheer the kid up, and he does so by juggling and everything. And that calms the kid down and everything. And then a police officer shows up with the kid's parents. And yeah, so the parents thank him for finding and looking after their kid. And he says, don't worry about it. So yeah, so then he takes off. He meets up with Sawatori. I'm trying to remember. Sawatari, but Sakurako. Okay, I'm just trying to remember names. Sorry. And yeah. So they see the trouble that the archaeologists get into, and so Yusuke goes down to see what's going on and investigate and everything where the tomb is. Unfortunately for him, there is Karu Ichijo, who is investigating everything, and he is, I guess, probably the chief police officer or something like that, or more of a detective maybe. And yeah, and him and the police officers are not letting him in. But yeah, and as he leaves, he sees a police officer with the stoned or calcified or whatever belt that he will, or that is for the transformation for Kuuga, which he doesn't know right away, but when he looks at it, he gets some flashes of Kuuga and everything. And that basically leads him to wonder what exactly it is or what's going on with it and everything. So then he meets back up with, I should just have this page over the GarageBand thing. Sakurako. and she brings some of her, I think, her laptop and some other tech and whatever to help him and everything, because she basically, um, due to, I think, her trying to translate the written language of the tomb, she managed to find and translate a few of the things that came about before they happened down at the tomb and everything. And yeah, but um, Kaoru, he meets up with. I'm trying to make sure. Yeah, sorry, I was just clicking on one of the names to make sure I got these people right. So yeah, so Kaoru, he meets up with both of them. He was gonna get in contact with Sakurako anyways, and he brings them to the, I think, the police headquarters in, and to a meeting room where he first shows them the, basically, I think, a digitized version of the tape that was in the camera, the video camera, that the, I think it was a woman that had it. It was either, or maybe it was a guy. Either way, and they see the kind of disturbing images and everything, and hear the audio and everything, and it disturbs them, obviously. The thing is, I think I heard Yusuke say Kuuga during this, but no one questions it. And it's not subtitled, so I wonder if it was maybe that was maybe a mistake in the audio editing or something. I don't know. It was really weird. Um, so yeah, but then Kaoru gives them then access or permission to look at the belt that they picked up and everything, and then he leaves to, I think, go speak with one of his or go speak to someone um, while they examine it and everything. But as everything's going, there is a spider enemy, a spider monster that appears. And basically, yeah, a few different Kamen Rider series have begun with a spider enemy or have included a spider enemy as an homage to, I believe, the first couple of episodes from the original Kamen Rider series. I know Kamen Rider Black did this. This series does this, and I think a few of the other series after this do this as well. Just doing their own version of it, or even bringing back the original. So, yeah. And the suit's design even looks like an updated version of the one from the original series. So, I gotta give them props to that. It's clearly an homage, and it's really interesting. It's probably good also to pay homage to Shotaro Shinomori through that as well, by just including some references to the original series and everything when they can. Because, again, by the time that the series went into production and premiered, he had just died a few years before. So, yeah. Um, so then the fight between the spider monster and the police officers that are there that show up and try to fight it, it gets to the point where one of the police officers gets in his car and drives away, but the spider latches onto him with the spider webs that it can shoot out, and he crashes into, I think it's mainly because the spider probably just takes control of the car as well. He crashes into the police. Um, the why am I blanking on this? But basically, the police building, and they the police department, and yeah, everyone's basically freaked the fuck out because Spider's still in the car. Then it gets out and starts attacking people. But then Yusuke, he puts the belt on, and it fuses within him basically, and he doesn't necessarily know what to do at first. But then he starts fighting the spider, and slowly transforms into a white version with smaller horns as well on the helmet, into Kuuga. So, yeah, a white version of Kuuga. And so, yeah, so he fights it. Then uh, Kaoru, he shows up in a helicopter for some reason to basically see them fight because they're on top of the building, I believe, fighting. And basically, what happens is they fight for a bit, but then the spider latches on to the helicopter and brings them both up there. Then Yusuke fights the spider more until he knocks it, or actually, I think just wrestles it away from the helicopter, and it crashes through the building below it. And yeah, but then Kaoru asks who he is, but then Yusuke's like, basically just never mind that, but he gives him a thumbs up as well. So that clues him into who it is because Yusuke did that earlier on and everything, um, in front of him, I believe at the site of the tomb. So yeah, um, and then basically, I think that's where the episode ends. And yeah, and honestly, pretty good first episode, I would say, in regards to not wasting time and just getting right down to business and everything with what they wanted to do for it. I do like the homage to the original Kamen Rider series with the spider enemy and everything. I like the mystery that they have set up with the Kuuga powers and what they are in regards to, like, I guess the ancient times in which it existed. I do like that we get a flash of the different forms of Kuuga as well, that we will see. It also, I said in one of the Agito video or Agito podcast episodes that Agito's suit very much reminds me of Kuga's, and yeah, with the fact that they have multiple forms that change color as well as I think change their helmets as well. Um, yeah, there's no like hiding the fact that Agito's suit and powers were heavily based on Kuga's and everything when they were planning out the series. But yeah, sorry for that cough. But yeah. So I don't really think I have much else to say on this episode. I just thought it was pretty good. We get a good amount of establishing for Yusuke and Kaoru. We get, uh, sorry, still trying to remember names. Sakura Ko. We also see her, and establish her early on. Uh, Not really too much else for this episode. I am not sure if the second episode is going to be a continuation of this. Kind of hope it is, because like Spider Enemy is kind of like a loose thread, unless they establish that it died crashing through the ceiling or the roof of that building. But yeah, I will say some of the special effects are really dated nowadays. The upscaling probably doesn't help it, but also, well, I should say upscaling of like the uncompressed, I think, masters for the episode, um, because you have a mix of pretty bad CG. They use it sparingly. I will say that they use the CG sparingly where they need to, in order to portray what they want to do. But unfortunately, the technology was not quite there. I think they did know that though here at the very least, because, like I said, they use it sparingly. Where they have it, where Yusuke he slowly transforms through or into Kuuga, and they use like sort of, I guess, a morph tool or something like that in the editing program that they would have used to put these episodes together. Um, they have they have like bullet impacts on the spider monster's body from when the police shoot at it and the bullets hit it. That I don't think looked too great. They wouldn't be so bad if the compositing didn't um, or wasn't or didn't fail when the suit actor for the spider moved just a little bit and the impacts mostly stayed where they were. They didn't move with the spider's body like it should have, or like they should have a few times. And when you're just paying attention to these things, and when you're just watching, um, it's really just kind of distracting. So yeah. Then there's the green screening with the spider, and basically it doesn't really look too great. On top of that, they use CG for the spider's like webs when it shoots it out and wraps it around something. I don't really necessarily know how they could have made it any better with the level of software or technology or whatever that they had at the time. But I don't know, this just doesn't hold up as well as it could have. I think if they did some things like practically or more practically, I think it would have held up a lot better, or at the very least, maybe not held up as well, but or held up better. But like at the very least, you'd appreciate the filmmaking and everything. I don't know. It's just something for me to think about. Um, and yeah, the fighting as well is just kind of basic. They don't really have too much of or too much of a hang or angle, I guess, or too much of a uh, too much of a hang on. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Too much of a hang on what they needed to do for the fighting in this show at the very least yet. Um, so yeah, because like I just remember watching the original series, which by the way I'm doing another podcast series on, but currently it is going to be exclusive to the Patreon. So support that if you want to hear my thoughts on those episodes as I watch them. But basically, um, when they basically they pretty much hit the ground running with the action in the original series pretty quickly, from what I remember, and the fighting's just kind of basic. Doesn't really have that flashiness, but granted, it's fine that it doesn't. I think Yusuke doesn't really have a handle on his powers yet, and it's just the first episode, so you hope there's more and they will get a hang on it over the course of the next several episodes. So, yeah. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say on this. So, on to episode 2. Alrighty then, so yeah, episode 2, and this episode was actually pretty good. We are pretty much off to the races on this one. It picks up where the last one left off, with Yusuke waking up in a restaurant with, Sakurako, and after the fight the previous night, or previous day actually, she informs him that he's been out for about 11 hours. Which, funnily enough, kind of made me think of the scenes in Back to the Future where Marty wakes up multiple times. The first 2 times were with his mom, and then with his, I think, great grandma. So, yeah, in the Back to the Future trilogy. But it wasn't made as an explicit reference to that. It just reminded me of that similar dialogue. So, yeah. So he informs her, I believe, about him fighting the spider monster and everything. So, yeah. So then we see, I'm just going to call him Ichijo, because that is what the rest of the characters are going to be referring to him as. So yeah, so Ichijo, he has been, or he's in the middle of an investigation where basically a bunch of people have mysteriously died, and they have 2 bite marks on their necks. So we get another reference to the original Kamen Rider series, and that being the Batsman in this series. It's a different kind of bat, and I think they did better on this suit than they did better in 1971. You would hope that that would be the case, but not always. Unlike the Spider Monster, which I think was more of I think if I remember right, it was an upgrade to the original costume used in the original series. This one is a definite upgrade, because they actually made it look like a bat. They kind of made it look like a different kind of bat. It kind of reminds me actually of, at least the head, kind of reminds me of Eye Guy's design from Ben 10, where it has that, like, There's no eyes. It's just a like vampire mouth and like sort of like wings on the top of the head. It, if you know what Eye Guy from Ben 10 looks like, you'll know what this thing looks like, and I think it looks actually pretty good. And I think some of the special effects for it are pretty good as well, but I'll get to that later. So yeah, so uh, Ichijo is off to another investigation. He is going through town, but then he sees Yusuke in the restaurant and everything, and he taps on the window, and Yusuke comes out to talk to him, and he basically just doesn't even want to hide that he was the guy who fought the unknown life form as, or just actually yeah, unknown life form as they're calling it, and Ichijo says, "So you're unknown life form too." So yeah, so they're labeling these things with unknown life form and numbers. Which, if you remember from my Agito, the first couple of Agito videos, or maybe it's the very first one, that was on episodes 1 and 2 of that series, basically they started going with that. They refer to the events of Kuuga happening a couple years prior to it, and they refer to the unknown life forms. Then they shorten the new enemies to just unknowns. So yeah, since they're similar but not the same. But yeah. So so Yusuke tells him that, and Ichijo makes sense of it. Granted, he kind of already knew, but yeah. And Yusuke makes a reference to the fact that he did the thumbs up and everything to him. So yeah. Um, so uh, he or Ichijo gives him a thing to um, go see a doctor basically when he gets back to Tokyo. And yeah, because he can't really. Actually, no. I think this is actually before the bat monster comes in. But yeah, um, because they get radioed to go and investigate it. So yeah. So then we see uh, Yusuke take off, and he eventually gets to his own investigating of what's going on. Basically, stuff is happening near a church, um, and it involves pastor, I think, Jose, which interestingly they chose to name the character Jose, and they have a Japanese guy playing the character instead of a Mexican. Okay, or at least someone who looks Mexican. Granted, I know the acting pool is probably really small in Japan, especially at the time, for finding that, but they also call that section of, I think it's Tokyo, um, a Spanish name. I think it's like San Marco or something like that. So, yeah, it's, I don't know. It's really weird. Um, yeah, it's not like there are no Mexicans living in Japan. Um, there's just not a lot of them. But yeah, so we have that, and yeah, so Yusuke goes into the church, and he comes into contact with the pastor and or preacher. I can't remember which one. I don't even know if this church is Catholic or Christian, but yeah. Um, but then the uh, the guy is just basically really creepy, and you can tell right away that he's basically a vampire. As he swoops down when he's about to attack Yusuke, he can't cross a beam of light that's coming in through the window. So yeah, but Yusuke gets out of there because he sees that Jose is fine, and he doesn't really see too much wrong with it. Although I think he does get a bit of a suspicion when the guy like just Batman's out of there. Apt monster to be using for that. So yeah, so Then we have a fight with the Batsman, and between it and a few uh, police officers, including what am I names? Ichijo. After, by the way, a funeral is held for um, someone that Sakurako knows. We also see the guy's daughter begin to cry during it, and she has to run, and so she has to run out of the building because she's getting really emotional and everything. And Yusuke's basically just really pissed that he couldn't fight the monster. I think it's I think that's actually after this fight. So there's a fight that happens, and Yusuke goes in and does transform into I think it's the less powerful Kuuga, the white Kuuga, and the Batsman smacks him around and everything until he transforms back to normal. But he saves Ichijo and everything, and he's not too badly hurt, which is good. But yeah, and Ichijo basically tells him to stay out of the police's business, and that if he's not gonna be serious about it, he shouldn't be the one fighting because he has a choice about it. I think is what he was getting at. I don't understand this whatsoever, but okay. Um, so yeah, so then Ichijo goes in with a hunting rifle to hunt down the Batsman, and yeah, he goes into the church with it, shoots at the Batman a few times, doesn't work because the bullets don't like penetrate its skin, and it attacks him, and because I think a few candles got caught on some drapes, um, or curtains or whatever, they catch on fire, and then Ichijo's jacket catches on fire, or trench coat or whatever catches on fire, and yeah, but he's too badly hurt to really move or do anything about it. But luckily, Yusuke comes in on his bike and gets the Batman away from Ichijo, puts out the fire on him. Unfortunately, his bike is ruined because it catches fire and everything. And I think it's the gas in it probably ignites due to the fire. But yeah. Um. So then, uh, so then, Ichijo drags, or no, Yusuke drags Ichijo out of there. And he also transforms, or no, it's after this. He transforms into the full red Kuuga form after he gets a bit of or after he gets some flashes in his brain about it, of how to do the henshin. And yeah, so then, but before he fully transforms and everything, he can easily now fight the Batsman. And yeah, and I won't stop saying it like that probably. But yeah, so he fights it, and yeah, transforms into Kuuga, and he learns the name of it from the Batsman when it says Kuuga, and he's just like, yes, that's what this has to be. I am Kuuga. And yeah, so they fight for a bit, um, including when the Batsman takes him to another building, and they chase each other around for a bit. But then, who interrupts the fight but the Spider-Man from the previous episode? And yeah, because it didn't die. It just seemed like it did. So yeah. So Yusuke fights it, and eventually beats it enough to where it explodes. Because you gotta have villains die in explosions in a Kamen Rider show. So yeah. So it dies. Yusuke's fine. Ichijo is safe. And there's a bit of a what is the word? It's like homoerotic sort of shit. Oh yay, there we go. Where Yusuke for some reason has Ichijo like resting on him until he wakes up for some reason. Ichijo even is just like, why am I resting on you? And Yusuke's like, don't worry about it. And it's just like, the fuck. But yeah, so then the episode ends right there with all of that. Um, so yeah, so I gotta say, I think this one is actually another pretty good episode. Although this one, the special effects are definitely not holding up, and there are more special effects shots um, in this that heavily use the special effects as opposed to the last one. There's a bit of green screen in this as well, with the Batman flying off with Yusuke and everything. And due to the frame rate, it looks weird. Um, they're moving like faster than they should at some points. So yeah, I don't think that they thought that through. Yeah, the frame rate needed to be lowered on them. I think that's just how the video exported when they were editing it back in 1999, and they just didn't notice or didn't care. Um, so, yeah. Granted, it is just for a few seconds, so it's not like it's world ending. But yeah. Um, and I think, yeah, the transformation sequence for Jose into the Batsman is definitely uh, like not the best, because it makes extensive use of like morph tool and whatever to replace him, and or replace the actor with the guy in the suit, and yeah, it just doesn't look great, unfortunately. It's mainly when it like cuts away to the full body of the guy transforming into the bat. I don't understand why they did this. They really should have just had him transform in pieces close to the camera and then revealed the Batsman, you know. But yeah, and then I'm trying to think what else. I do like that Yusuke unlocked the red Kuuga powers, and they are basically just saying that he is getting visions, I think, from the belt for the how to use the Kuuga powers and everything. Um, and so I don't necessarily mind that they are. It's just how they're doing it. So yeah. Um, and yeah, the whole thing with the Batman is interesting. The fact that they chose to do that. It seems like probably early Kuga is probably going to be homaging the original Kamen Rider in this way, with bringing back or with having like updated versions of the original enemies, which I'm fine with. It's whatever. Um, but yeah, I do hope that like some more stuff happens in regards to developing the characters more and getting the plot or the main plot going. Um, but yeah. So I'm trying to think. Do I have anything else to say? Well, they established that Yusuke basically just left Sakurako. Sorry, I'm having to look up her name. At the restaurant and everything after he had like finished. I think it was curry that he was eating. Um, and basically just left her for like 2 hours before she finally, I guess, paid for the food and left. Um, just like what the fuck. And he never does go to the doctor, but they do show up in what looks like I assume it's a actually it might just be a hospital. But yeah, um, I don't really get why Ichijo uh, says the stuff to Yusuke about uh, Yusuke, if he's gonna fight, be serious about it or whatever he says. It's just really dumb, in my opinion. It's like he sees that Yusuke is actually pretty like serious about fighting and everything. Um, I don't know. Maybe that was supposed to tie in with the stuff with the Kuga belt and unlocking like the full potential of it and everything with the red Kuga form. Um, but they didn't quite have that in terms of the dialogue, so or anything with the visuals. So if that was how that was supposed to connect together, I I think they failed in regards to that. Um, so yeah. Um, So yeah, I do think that they did pretty well on like slowly having it be that Yusuke unlocks the red Kuuga form from the white one, and he does recognize that in the flashes in his mind, he sees the red Kuuga suit, but he's not in it. He's in a white Kuuga suit. So yeah, and then they have that through line going through the episode, which I think is good. I think though they focus probably more on that than probably what they wanted to do of with the stuff that Ichijiro says to him. To me, it's just a little odd that he would say that. But I don't really know what they could have done because it seems like this episode was a bit packed. I think they could have probably showed that off maybe with the fighting a little bit more because I think Yusuke was giving it his all, but he's not really a fighter, so he doesn't have a lot of like prowess or anything to him. It seems. But yeah, at the very least, that's what I was picking up. So yeah. Um, so yeah, I think this episode could have probably used another draft or two to really bring it together. But yeah, so yeah, I don't really have much else to say on this one. So on episode 3. All right, so yeah, episode 3, we got a few different plot lines going on here. We get introduced to Yusuke's sister, whom he goes to see. It seems she's teaching a preschool class, which is pretty good, pretty cool of her to do. And he goes there to visit her and also help entertain the kids for a little bit. And yeah, and he's mainly going there because he doesn't really have anything else to do. Um, because Sakurako, she, or Sawatari, maybe I should call her. So at the very least, I think what they're mainly calling her on the show. She is just going home, I believe, to rest. It's funny because they talk about going between Tokyo and Nagano, and there's a few other places around Tokyo, like the sub cities in Tokyo and everything. And it's funny to be like a foreigner, an American, watching this series 26 years after it came out. And because I've been to Tokyo twice, I have the more of the understanding of where um like a lot of these parts of Tokyo are in conjunction to one another. So yeah, unless if it was Nakano, but I'm pretty sure it's Nagano, right? Um, and that's kind of the thing is like literally, and I assume it was the same back then because I think they show a shot of the one of the train lines. It's the green train line. I can't remember what it's called. But that's one of the main lines in Tokyo, and like, you literally, at least in the 2020s, I'm not sure if it was different back then, like if they added train lines or they changed it up a bit or whatever. But you literally, if you have one of the uh, like train cards or whatever to get through the gates and everything to get on one of the subway cars, or technically it's not a subway actually. Part of it is, but like not everything's above ground, so one of the trains, and literally you just have to stay on them for a little bit, and you can literally get to pretty much all of Tokyo. All of Tokyo is in like not necessarily a circle, but like a path that literally just takes maybe an hour or a little bit over an hour to completely like do, depending on what train line you're on and everything. And obviously, there's several different train lines. I know there's like blue, green, yellow, maybe a red line. I know at least the first three exist. But yeah, have not explored more than that when it comes to Tokyo in regards to like, let's say like what is the word I'm looking for? In regards to, or the more touristy, I guess, kind of, or more popular areas, I guess, of Tokyo. Um, and yeah, it's just interesting to have that context of that. So I'm more entertained by the fact that they keep going between the different sections of Tokyo, because it looks like Yusuke and Sakurako they both got off of the train and everything, and it looks like they were taking what at the time was like a version maybe of the Shinkansen. So yeah, um, but yeah, maybe I'm overthinking in regards to where Nakano is, but I'm pretty sure that's just a part of Tokyo, and they could have just easily taken the regular like slower trains, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm probably am missing something. I could probably ask a friend, and like he'd probably know more than I would, because he knows more about the Tokyo train system and everything than I do. But yeah. So yeah. So they have that uh plot line sort of going through, and then there's a thing where Yusuke goes into, I think, the house that he's staying at, and he doesn't have the key because he lost the key when or during the fight the night before. I'm assuming it was probably in his jacket that he took off before he started fighting the monster and everything, or the unknown life form. And yeah, he just doesn't have his keys on top of not having his bike anymore. So yeah. So we have that going in. So he sneaks in through the top window. So yeah, that's kind of funny. Um, so then we get the other plot line, which is Ichijo. He attends a meeting at the police station where he they go over like the unidentified life forms thus far in the first two episodes. That being uh, unidentified life forms 1 through 4. Um, Two of them being Kuuga, but they don't know that they're the same thing because of the fact that Kuuga at first appeared as white and has like smaller horns and whatever. Then when Yusuke unlocks the red form, it's obviously red replacing the white, and it has bigger horns on the mask or the helmet and everything. So yeah, they don't know they're the same thing. Basically, is what I'm saying. And the other two life forms are the Spider-Man and the Batman from the first two episodes and everything. I think the Batman is still around, but yeah. Um, and they're trying to investigate um, what's going on. We see Ichijo follow a woman who is speaking the Grongi and everything, and whatever. It's funny because the language, the way that they wrote it, it seems like a well thought out like linguistical language because they or linguistically well thought out language to make that sound less weird. Um, because from what I understand, it is sort of based on Japanese, which is why Shout Factory's Blu-rays and their streams of the episodes have versions of the subtitles with and without Grongi. On the Blu-ray, you get both. On some of the streaming services that the episodes are on, you get just the one with the Grongi subs. The YouTube uploads, I'm not sure what subtitle track they used. All I know is that they didn't use both, which I would think would be a thing that they would want to do. I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe that's just a selling point of the Blu-ray. But yeah, so it's a language that sounds very similar to Japanese in terms of its construction and like how the words are, but you can't readily tell what the hell they're saying unless if it's a Japanese loan word, and that's actually pretty good. I do appreciate that Shout Factory. I think I said this before that they have a without Grongi track as the default track for the subtitles on the Blu-ray because watching this, I am watching it similarly to how a person in Japan would have watched this back in 2000 and everything. So I um I'm not getting the Grongi, so I don't know what the hell's going on in regards to them. So yeah, so Ichijo follows them. They get to I think it's a rundown building, basically, or something like that. The woman meets up with, because the woman speaks to him. He recognizes as not Japanese that she's speaking when he tries to. I think he tries to ask her something, and then she runs. She nearly gives him the slip, but he's able to keep pace with her and arrives when she's talking to a guy in the rundown building, and she tells him something about Tokyo, and then before Ichijo can get a shot in with his gun, he gets a call on his phone, and unfortunately, we find out that it's one of his coworkers at the police station, and yeah, so he really couldn't. Yeah, he gets beaten or batted away and just right up against the wall that's behind him and gets a bit hurt. So yeah, so then those two take off, but then he gets a call about the fact that they found on a security camera a shadow that was I guess somewhere in Tokyo, and everything. It was basically a distortion on the camera feed, and he goes to catch up with the rest of the force, and then they all are taking off when they uh, get, I think, notice of a disturbance. Basically, um, Yusuke encounters one of the unknown life forms, and he transforms into Kuuga. But then, before he can really start to fight it, the police show up and they aim their guns both at him and the unknown life form. And that's where we leave off with the cliffhanger for this episode. And I gotta say, I actually kind of like how the episode is paced a bit, where we have the contrast of Yusuke and him meeting back up with his sister and them having a conversation, knowing her a bit in terms of her teaching children and everything, or just looking after children for the day, and at a preschool, I guess, and then to juxtaposed to what Ichijo, what he is doing in terms of his job as a policeman and everything. There's also a thing where Ichijo, I think that's the first thing that happens in the episode. He wakes up at the hospital. Yusuke leaves a note for him that he's gonna come back by nightfall, to which he actually no, right. By the in regards to when he encounters the unknown life form is when he is gonna hop back on the train to go to the hospital to meet back up with Ichijo. Obviously, he doesn't know that Ichijo checked himself, obviously, or has checked himself out of the hospital. But yeah, um, and and then trying to think. There's the thing where Ichijo is trying to call Yusuke, I believe, twice through whatever like number that Yusuke gave him. Um, so yeah, at first he tries to call him, but I think it's his work where he's trying to call or something like that. But it's just the answering machine because the workplace is not open, and then it's an Oriental kind of place. I can't remember exactly what was said in the subtitles, but yeah, where they just have a bunch of stuff, and then I don't think Yusuke, although it would make more sense if Yusuke does have a cell phone. I don't know. He tries to reach him that way, but maybe on his home phone or something like that. But he's obviously not there either, so he can't reach him. So yeah, so I do like this kind of like dynamic here. He also tries to stick up for Kuuga when he's at the meeting at the police station and everything, and he tries to vouch for him by saying that Kuuga, although they label it as life form number three or unidentified life form number three, um, he tries to say that Kuuga saved him. I think the night before, but the police chief, I assume at the very least that's the police chief, doesn't readily believe him without proof. He says, "Do you have proof of that?" Even though uh, Ichijo still like stands behind that assertion and everything. So yeah, it's one of those things where like you can see it from one angle, but then also another in regards to that where yeah, the police chief does have a point. Um but yeah, and Ichijo can't really readily prove what happened without I think another person or some legitimate proof or whatever. But yeah, this is also very similar to what I noticed Agito would do uh, the year after, where at the very start they try to do the camera footage kind of thing with the unknowns and everything and Agito, but they're unable to see them at first, and then so they don't necessarily readily know what they're dealing with. And but here we see they get pictures and footage of Kuuga and the unknown life forms. So it's a very interesting sort of contrast with how Agito would later do the same kinds of things, just in a very different way. So yeah, so I actually really like that in terms of the juxtaposition. So yeah, um, so I don't think I have much else to say on this episode. Just a pretty good episode, and yeah, so we're on to episode 4. All right, so for this one, um, they continue on with the fight between Yusuke and the Grongi, or unidentified life form, from the previous episode, and so they start to fight, but the police open up fire on them and hits the unidentified life form in the eye, I believe. And but yeah, and it tries to attack the police officers, but Yusuke pulls it back, and then they both run away. It's really weird how they shoot it though, because rather than I don't know showing them like running away and whatever, they're just kind of left to the background before the camera cuts, and then we get the theme song, and then when we cut back to the actual episode, it's the next day, and the police officers are at the station and just they're like talking about what had happened the night before, and one of them says that they shot and killed unidentified life form 4, which again is Kuuga slash Yusuke, to uh oh, fucking blanking on names, Ichijo, and he's obviously worried, but yeah, but the another guy gets an email that they actually got away and everything. Then it was confirmed by the police chief coming in, and yeah, so they all talk about that. We then get Ichijo going out because he's being assigned to go to Tokyo, I believe, the next day to investigate the unidentified life form stuff, and he goes to do that. But as his colleague notes, he still has 3, I think, fractured ribs, is what he says, or it's either that or broken. But yeah, um, and we obviously see that Ichijo shouldn't probably be out of the hospital, or just at the very least should be home resting up and recuperating. But obviously he feels like that's not the best for him right now. So yeah. So then we see Yusuke sleeping on the floor of the lab, I guess, for where Sakurako works, and um, she comes in and accidentally like trips over him. Which this is the place where he was going in the last episode, not to wherever he's staying. So yeah. So then um he wants her to keep deciphering the symbols on the Kuga belt and everything, because as he says, his instincts are only taking him so far. So yeah, so then she says she's gonna keep working on it, but she tells him not to be, I think so, like brash and everything, and like heading into battle head first and everything. But yeah. So then Ichijo calls up Yusuke and tells him that they need to meet up. So then Yusuke tells him that he'll meet with him outside of one of the gates of Tokyo Station. So yes, we get some moving parts and everything. So then we see the Grongi uh, unidentified life forms, I guess, meeting up and talking. We don't necessarily know what they're saying at first, or just right now, but yeah. So then they go off. They also come into contact with the unknown life form 5, and it takes off and everything. So then I'm trying to remember. So we got Sakurako calling up Ichijo and telling him not to let Yusuke transform and just head into battle because of the fact that, well, she's obviously worried about him doing that because and him getting killed and everything. So yeah. However, the unidentified life form or unknown life form, I think, they it starts attacking police again, and Yusuke initially takes a police officer's bike because the officer was trying to follow the unknown life form uh, as it was speeding away down a road and everything. But he gets sort of like intersected by a truck that's coming through and stops like right in the middle of the four-way intersection. He veers to the left and crashes. So Yusuke takes his bike to go follow the unknown life form. And yeah, because I'm trying to remember, this was also introduced in the first few episodes of Agito as well, because they shortened it from unknown life form to unknowns there. So yeah. So then uh, he almost catches up with it, but then crashes himself. Then Ichijo meets up with him, takes him into, or puts like a cuff around his wrist. Obviously, he's not going to arrest him or anything, but he just wants him to come with him. And they get back to, I think, the police station, and all that. And he gets a radio call that from I think one of the police officers on duty, where a lot of them have caught up to the unknown life form and are trying to subdue it. They're shooting at it more. Um, but yeah, and Yusuke is he's waiting for a response from Ichijo, and Ichijo pulls out the note from the last episode, uh, and then reads it and says and reads he rereads the part that says, "I'm going to take this seriously," and everything from Yusuke. And so what he does is he introduces Yusuke to a prototype, um, or an advanced prototype motorcycle that the police force has been working on. I think it's like 2000A or something like that, or it's either 2000 or 2500A. I can't remember which number. I think it's 2000A. But yeah, and if that gets clarified in the next episode, I will say that. But so uh, he puts the I think the ignition or not ignition, whatever the right like was it the thrust, something like that, into the back into the bike, and then um has or lets Yusuke take it and everything. And so yeah, and he basically explains that it has all of the like parts and stuff that were removed from the I think the consumer grade version for cost reasons, I think is what he says. So yeah, so then he says he'll be behind Yusuke. And so yeah, so Yusuke transforms into Kuuga, then takes off with the bike. Obviously with, like I said, with Ichijo behind him a bit. Traveling a bit more like I'm trying to think of the word. I guess leisurely. I don't know, but just slowly, kind of. But yeah, um, so so Ichijo, or not Ichijo, Yusuke goes and catches up with the unknown life form and pretty much chases it around the building that they're in on the bike for a bit, which I gotta admit, the practical stunts for the bike chase actually pretty good. I like that they didn't just green screen. There's a shot as well earlier with when Yusuke's on the police bike and that he took from the officer, and they did not do a green screen for that. They actually shot not necessarily with the actor on the bike, but like on something on the back of I'm assuming of like a van where he's sitting on something like the bike so that they could get that shot. And I do like that. They do a similar thing in Kamen Rider, I think the first and the next, or maybe just the next. And with Kamen Rider Ichigo and Nigo, and they did a pretty good job with that. So I'm assuming they used a similar like filming technique here, and yeah, so I like that. So then after Yusuke fully catches up with the unknown life form, he starts fighting it, but then uh, Ichijo, the not the police chief, but one of the other officers, and his colleague and another officer comes in. The uh, colleague, I cannot remember his name for the life of me. I don't even know if it was said at all. So yeah, and if it was, it hasn't been said in a while. So I cannot remember the guy's name for the life of me. But he starts shooting on both of them. But then Ichijo says to him to not do that, and the other police officer says trust him with that and everything, because earlier when Yusuke as Kuuga got to where the officers were shooting on the unknown life form, he asked him if he was okay and everything, showing that like he's not one of the unknown life forms, or not like them specifically, and all that. And that he's more of a good guy. So yeah, so then uh, Yusuke fights the thing more, defeats it, and then gives his thumbs up to Ichijo. Ichijo starts walking away, but then throws him a thumbs up back. Uh, so yeah, and that's where that ends. So yeah, so I do like where this episode takes us in regards to this like short story arc kind of, that if you want to call it that, where we start off with Yusuke being more, I guess, green in regards to becoming Kuuga and unlocking the red form, and um, getting all the basics of a Kamen Rider down in regards to the writers working with this and everything, and being introduced to these characters and the world and everything, and just establishing the character dynamics and everything. I do like that Ichijo, he does put his faith in Yusuke to, you know, not only do the right thing, but also be not as brash or anything as he's been told that Yusuke is. And to basically just, he's trusting his instinct with Yusuke and everything. So yeah. Yusuke, I do like that we show he does have a bit of more maturity than he's been shown to have in the last few episodes, with the fact that he specifically told Ichijo in his note to him that he is taking things seriously and everything. Plus, he goes to Sakurako with the Kuuga stuff because, as he says, his instinct is only taking him so far. So he's not afraid to reach out for help in determining like what's going on, and making sure he can get to the bottom of whatever's or whatever the Kuuga stuff is and everything, because he wants to know just as much as anybody, which I do appreciate in a protagonist also wanting to know what exactly they're dealing with in terms of their powers. So yeah. And we get a thing in the where Ichijo is vindicated, I think from the last episode, when he said that Kuuga saved him and everything. When the other officer also vouches for Kuuga and everything, um, because of what Yusuke said to him and everything, when he asked if he was okay. And I do like that we are getting these little payoffs to the last few episodes. It really pays to, when it's a serialized narrative, to watch these episodes in like short amounts of time, so you have stuff that's fresh in your mind. So yeah, I just do like this little like mini arc that we have been on for the first 4 episodes. I'm used to like the first 3 episodes being their own like, I don't know, short little kind of movie kind of thing with the serialized narrative and then ongoing. Um, for the next however many episodes to be serialized, one bleeding into the next. But yeah, or if you're Zets, taking on the second half of the Heisei era in terms of tradition, and for the first half, after the first 3 episodes, every 2 episodes um, are one story told over 2 episodes. But yeah, um, so yeah, I did like this episode. I liked how it paid off a bunch of things, and yeah, good job, writers. So yeah, on to episode 5. All right, some new things in this episode, obviously. So I guess small. Start small. First off, we get introduced to a new character in. I can't tell if his name is supposed to be pronounced Jean or John or like Jean or something like that, because Jean. Um, no real um, understanding yet of where exactly he's supposed to be from, but he's played by a Romanian actor. Um, so yeah, they have sprinklings of like English in his dialogue and everything, but he mostly speaks Japanese, and he seems to speak Japanese actually pretty well. So good on the actor for being able to do that. Also, just very interesting to see a white person in one of these shows, because obviously Japanese show, so they do not show up too often unless if it's like a one-off character or like a very tertiary character from what I know. So yeah, um, and he's established to be a friend of Sakurako and everything. So yeah, she's continuing to try to analyze what is or the symbols on the Kuuga belt and everything, but is not uh like coming up with any results. I do kind of find the solution funny, which I think it was meant to be, um, where Jean or Jean, I don't know, he just hits enter or return on the keyboard for her computer, and it just like actually does the analysis. He says that she forgot to do it, so or do that. So yeah, um, this is kind of funny. So already I do like the character. I think he's fine. Can't wait. Or I'm waiting to see what they do with him in future episodes and everything. So yeah. Um, but already I think that they're off to a decent start with getting the audience to at least like the character, at least a little bit. So yeah, I did find that funny. So yeah, um, so we have I guess I'll go just off of what I remember. We have uh, Ichijo meeting up with Yusuke about the, the threat for the unknown life forms and everything. Um, oh, and yeah, and he takes him to get examined by his friend that he mentioned a few episodes ago. They're in the Kanto prefecture, I think, or region. I shouldn't really say prefecture. I think prefectures isn't that more like just a sub part of. something. I don't know. But they're in the Kanto part of Japan, and having Yusuke get pretty much a full um, biopsy. I don't know, just like getting scans and everything, and uh, because he's wearing the Kuuga belts, it is fused inside of him, and they find with I think a CAT scan that it's literally inside of him, and it comes out when he transforms into everything. But because he's fused with it, it's mutating his, or it has mutated his body and continues to mutate his body when he transforms into Kuuga, where he is, I believe, more durable and he's stronger. Like his muscles were like built up in terms of their density and all that. And because of that, he is now no longer really human. He's more like the unknown life forms um, that he is fighting than human at this point, just biologically. So, yeah, and there's also Ichijo says that he's known the guy for a while, so he can keep a secret and everything. But yeah, so they go through that, and then Sakurako, because she calls Yusuke's workplace, which is a bar, which is they say an Oriental like jeez, I can't remember the extra words, but it's like I want to say like perfume. I don't know. It's like it's just basically an Oriental kind of shop bar kind of thing. So yeah, Yusuke's boss there tries to regale Ichijo with some tales of his own adventures because he thinks that Ichijo is one of Yusuke's friends from adventuring, because Yusuke doesn't really give him any details on that. He just says no in regards to um, one of the things that the guy guesses at and everything. I do like that the guy starts to, or he goes on a bit of a ramble in regards to um, Everest, which he says kids, I guess at least in Japan, like mispronounced it and called it Irvest or something like that instead of Everest. And then he goes on about how people apparently call it the or like to call it the native name instead of Everest these days or something like that. Which maybe in Japan, I don't know. I have literally never heard of that. Um, but yeah, and and he ends up getting the name wrong because why am I Ichijo? He tells Yusuke that if he can subtly like tell his boss that he got it wrong, and yeah, and I can't remember for the life of me. I can't remember the name the boss said, but yeah, but Ichijo basically corrects him on that. So the boss has some details wrong in regards to that. So yeah. So then trying to remember Ichijo, or and that's when they go down to Kanto to get Ichijo's like scans and physical and whatever done. So yeah. Then Sakurako calls the guy and he says that he took off with a friend of his and everything to Kanto, I believe, is what he says. So she heads down there when she can't really get the analysis done and everything on the symbols, and she gets down there and she chastises Yusuke for continuing to fight as Kuuga, as well as Ichijo for not doing what she asked and getting him to stop and everything. And she also just chastises Yusuke for why he's fighting as Kuuga, because he says like uh, he needs to do it because realistically he's the only one with powers like the Unknowns. So yeah, so he's really the only one that can fight them. Um, Plus, I think he feels it's the right thing to do and everything, and he also wants to do it. So yeah, I get that she's worried about him because she's one of her, or she's one of his friends. But I don't know. Like pragmatically, he's right. Um, but yeah, but drama and all that. So yeah. So let me see. Why am I keep blanking on names for a second. Ichijo. We see Ichijo get well, not chastised, but like he's in a meeting with the police chief, and the guy asks him why he gave Kuuga their experimental or prototype motorcycle, and he said it's because he figured it was the right thing to do at the time. He's not giving him too many details on why, um, and the police chief even says so, but he's willing to take his word on it and everything, especially since, like, I'm assuming the other police officer vouched for the fact that Kuuga isn't isn't a bad guy. But yeah, but they also say he also says that unless we can provide more reasons or evidence or whatever as to why, they still have to classify Kuuga as an unknown life form. Obviously, they don't know he's called Kuuga at this point, but yeah, at the very least, from what I remember from the subtitles. So yeah, so we have that. So then Ichijo calls Yusuke to meet up because he said he would after their last meeting to talk about Sakurako, and Yusuke basically deduces that that's what he wanted them to meet about, and he says that Sakurako, just to not worry too much about her, that she's fine and that she'll come around. She just needs a bit of time to think about it. And so Ichijo just trusts him on that since, well, Yusuke's known him longer, or known her longer than he has. So, yeah, which is actually, not that bad. I don't mind stuff like that being established. So, yeah. So then, we see another unknown life form kill a person, and there's a police officer that is uh, on duty that catches it and everything, and then I believe puts in a call after he's attacked by the unknown life form to the rest of the police, and as well as to, or I think, well, they put in a thing to Kuuga as well, pretty much because they know that he has the bike, so they're calling him in for help, and so Yusuke takes off on his bike. On the way, he transforms into Kuuga, as well as puts in a different code for the bike, which I forgot to mention in the last episode. Basically, there was a code to activate it. It's basically like a lock system, like a number system on a lock, where you like rotate numbers and everything to get the right code to get the shit to unlock. And so that's what happened there. In this, he puts in a different code, which I don't know how he knows, but okay. Um, and he transforms it into a new mode, basically. Just transforming it into a red mode, which matches the colors of Kuuga. And and yeah, this will go on to be a thing in Kamen Rider. Technically, it was a thing before in the Showa era. Um, like I believe, yeah, I think it is. I remember Takahashi, or not Takahashi, Takeshi Hongo. Initially, at the very least, until they just said fuck it and made the bike stay permanently in cyclone mode, I believe, if I remember right. Um, he initially rode his regular motorcycle, and when he transformed into Kamen Rider on it, um, it transformed into cyclone mode. So yeah, so we have that. It's a staple in Kamen Rider to have that, which is fine.
This is like, I think, the first one to not automatically transform when someone henshins on it, but him putting in a manual code to transform it is also fine, I think. It's just funny though, because with the next series with Agito, they will immediately like disregard this and just have it transform when Suichi or Shuichi transforms into Agito. So it's just funny to me when with that shit happening. So, um, with that happening, he catches up to where the police are, and he starts fighting the new unknown life form. The unknown life form then like goads him into following him because it recognizes him as Kuuga, and it hops up to the top of the building, but Yusuke says that he can't jump that high, and so he goes up a fire escape on the side of the next building over, but it kicks him uh, onto, well, not down the thing, but like as he's climbing up and almost at the top. So yeah. Um, but he manages to transform into a new mode for Kuuga, a blue mode, which is apparently his dragon form, according to the wiki. Yeah, his dragon form. Um, which is a blue mode that makes every part of his red like suit and even his visor uh, blue, which I think actually looks pretty good. Not gonna lie. And it allows him to put more strength into his jumps, his hops, so he can keep pace with the unknown life form and everything. So yeah, he fights it at the top of the rooftops of the buildings that they're near. Um, but he is unable to really do any damage because, as he notes, uh, it lessens his strength, or at the very least his like muscles with his fists in terms of strength, to basically just give him those jumps and everything. Um, so yeah, so it's more of that kind of like dichotomy of like strength and weakness and everything. So yeah. So then the unknown life form takes him and throws him off a building, and it causes when he lands, it causes him to basically hurt his legs to the point where he can't stand, and that is where we leave off for the next episode. So overall, I do like this episode with establishing the next, like, I guess, like, short mini arc, I think is what they're going to take us on with this. Um, and continuing the story that's already set up, but continuing off of where we were for that little beginning 4-part episode arc. So, yeah. Um, I do admire Sakurako's, like, worry about Yusuke and everything. But I think that for the most part he'll be fine. It's like he said, she just needs some time to think about it. I do like that Ichijo is just pretty much on Yusuke's side for this stuff, and that he's like working with him and he's still vouching for him with the bike and everything. I do like that the police chief gives him the benefit of the doubt in that he was trying to do what he thought was best by giving Kuuga the bike and everything. And yeah, I do like that we are getting hints as to what's happened with Yusuke after he put on the Kuuga belt for the first time in terms of his body morphing and everything with the powers of the belt and just everything that's going on. I like that we're continuing the story and everything. So, yeah. In terms of the choreography, there's not really too much to say. One thing I did note, though, is that Yusuke seems to be going off of some sort of, like, hand-to-hand martial arts, which would make sense, because, like, they established in the first episode that he had just come back from, I believe, Tibet. So it would not surprise me if he learned the martial arts that he knows from maybe Tibet or something. So yeah, it's just yeah, just something that I noticed, and I do I do like what they're doing. So yeah. So on to episode 6.
Alright, and after realizing that my headset's mic was turned off for recording, and thus I was using the onboard microphone for my laptop, yeah, so we're back with episode 6. I may just enhance the audio, maybe not. I don't know, but you guys are getting more high quality audio right now. So yeah, um, and the title of this episode is actually interesting, Azure Dragon. I swear I have seen someone using that name before that I've ran into a while ago. So yeah, but basically we pick up where the last episode left off with Yusuke getting thrown down to the ground and basically getting his legs broken and everything in the, I guess, Azure form is what they're calling it for the series, the blue form and everything. And yeah, so the unknown life form takes off. So then uh we get him getting put into the hospital and being fixed up by Ichijo's doctor friend and everything. And Sakurako, she is making, or she is being, or she is made aware of what's going on, and so she heads down to the hospital. But Yusuke comes out and says that he's fine and leaves, basically to not make her worry, I believe, um, and takes off to go back to where he's staying. So yeah. Also to know, I forgot to note this in the last episode, or with the last episode, the unknown life form is basically he's based on a grasshopper. His monster form is so. Yeah, his out his the monster outfit is very heavily based on like Kamen Rider Ichigo, though it looks more like Shin from that movie. Because it's meant to be, I guess, a slightly more animalistic take on it rather than like technology based, I think. But yeah, just interesting to see. So yeah, so over the course of the episode, we get Ichijo with the police trying to track down the unknown life form and tracking it down through its killings, where it is throwing people off of rooftops and everything to kill them, and eventually they do catch up with it. Meanwhile, we get a bit of a character arc with Sakurako where she is well, she meets up with Yusuke's sister and has a talk with her about Yusuke and everything, and that leads her to like stop worrying as much about him and just basically trust in him to be okay and everything in the end. Um, and yeah, so that's a nice bit of a character development right there. Not to say that she can't be worried about him, it's just that she shouldn't try to be overly worried about him, I think is the whole thing about it. So yeah, so she goes back to her computer lab thing that she has and starts to analyze more of the symbols on the Kuuga belt and everything and translates more stuff. So yeah. So then Yusuke is dealing with still recovering because even though he left the hospital, he still seemingly feels pain in his in like I think his stomach area and or his torso, and thus he stops partway along the way to getting back home and is basically having to deal with the pain coming back and everything. Then when he gets back to his room, he basically just passes the fuck out for a long ass time for most of the next day. To the point where the guy who owns the bar that he works at is or says that he can't really be awoken or anything or disturbed or whatever from his sleep. So yeah, to Ichijo and everything when Ichijo calls him. So yeah, and then Ichijo just tells the guy to let Yusuke get his rest and everything. So basically, also from the dialogue with Ichijo's doctor friend, we get established that Yusuke basically has a healing factor where he heals in a very short amount of time from any of his injuries. And he comments on that, saying that the injuries that he sustained would normally take a month to heal. And yeah, but it doesn't heal as quickly as I think Yusuke was trying to let on. And so um, they, what was it? And yeah, so like I said, he was like doubled over in pain on the way back to where he lives and everything. So yeah. So then after that, when the cops find the unknown life form, Yusuke gets wind of it through the radio that's on his bike, and he goes off to fight the unknown life form. And when the cops are all batted away and everything, and um, can't handle it. He starts fighting it, but he automatically goes into the blue form instead of the red form, which he's kind of surprised by. But I guess since he doesn't know how necessarily to switch through or switch between the forms yet, does make sense. So yeah, at least that will. So yeah, but then Sakurako, she translates some of the symbols and uh, goes to where Yusuke's fighting the unknown life form and tells him basically a uh, a I think it's a riddle of some kind or something like that, where or maybe not a riddle, but like a thing where he needs to use that basically just leads him to knowing that he needs to use a staff to fight the thing, and so he tears off a railing, a handrail, I think, from a nearby or on the bridge where they're fighting, and it gets transformed into a bow staff, um, with his colors and everything, and so he continues to fight the thing and eventually succeeds in killing it. So, yeah. So then Sakurako tells him that she's better and basically shows him that she's no longer mad at him and everything. Um, and they're all good, and that's where the episode leaves off. So yeah. So overall, pretty simplistic episode, but not bad. I do like that they are continuing the storylines and everything. I do like that they get or that they work out Sakurako being like or working through her like worrying issues, for lack of a better word, with Yusuke and her what is the word? Her uh not necessarily like fully getting over it, but like working through trusting him and everything. And yeah, and we also get establishment of Yusuke's healing factor and everything, and him just not wanting her to worry about him. And I think also him probably just not wanting to stay in the hospital for too long. So yeah. Um. So I don't think there's too much else because like the police storyline is basically as I said. It just kind of goes through the episode, and Ichijo's just kind of there. He doesn't really do too much outside of his police work. Um, and yeah, so just another straightforward episode, but a good one at that. So yeah. All right, so episode 7 and the last one for this podcast video episode, whatever. So Yeah, so basically the episode just revolves around um, a new unidentified life form based on a wasp, basically, coming into play and using its stinger powers thing. That actually kind of reminds me of Frost from Dragon Ball Super, if you remember from, if you've ever seen that series. Basically, Frost uses a like I guess a stinger of some kind to inject a bit of a poison into first Goku, then Piccolo in the Universe 6 versus 7 tournament or 7 versus 6 tournament in the third arc of the show and technically the second arc of the manga and he to cheat and win his matches with them and everything. Um, and that ultimately gets him disqualified because outside or like I think outside tools and whatever just can't be used in the tournament. But yeah, it just reminds me of that. Although this time with this monster, when it stings through someone, it actively kills them because I believe it injects a poison into them. Um, but also I'm assuming it's also stinging them like in places that where they would be quickly killed, like their probably their heads or maybe their necks or something like that. But yeah, and the stingers go through into the ground as well, near where the victims get stung and die. So yeah. Meanwhile, we also see the daughter of the guy, the police officer who died several episodes ago, that uh, Yusuke was hanging outside of the funeral of, as well as or memorial, whatever it was, and Sakurako attended. I think in the second episode, actually, um, and she and her mom go to the police with a fragment of something that was found near the tomb from the first episode, and want to turn it into the police so they can hopefully track down unidentified life form zero. And Ichijo basically says that or leads them or gives them the address to Jonan University, which I think I was trying to remember in a previous episode um breakdown, I guess, for this video that I couldn't remember the name of, and says that there are people there who can analyze the fragments, and so the girl and her mom go there, and where do they go? But the room where Sakurako and Yusuke are analyzing the symbols more and everything, and working on a cipher key for the language and everything. If I have that right, I think it's a cipher key. But yeah, or a Rosetta Stone kind of thing. So then, what they do, or no, what basically happens is that the girl is like just kind of pissed that it doesn't seem like anyone's really sad, I guess, that um the stuff with her father, I think, just happened because I guess she's still on a bit of grief. Um, when Jean he comes in and or Jean, I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah, he comes in and looks at the fragment and gets all excited about how he can analyze it and everything, which is why the girl and her mom are there. And yeah, so the girl gets pissed and runs off. I believe her mom tries to follow, but yeah, she's seen later in the episode calling emergency services and at a payphone, which I don't know if those still exist in Japan, but man, this episode is showing its age. Um, since it's a payphone, and she says basically to the operator that they need to pick up looking for unidentified life form zero, because if not, or she'll probably die. Um, no idea as to why that is, but yeah. So yeah. Um, so then Ichijo takes Yusuke to a another person, I think at the police HQ or something like that, at a lab where she's analyzing the stingers that were left behind, and basically there she just deduces that they are like stingers from a wasp and everything, and that they and I know it sounds like obviousness, but like they don't know it until this point in the episode, and and all that shit, and so yeah, so then they also, or eventually, Ichijo gets a call about the deaths that are happening as they're happening when the wasp monster shows up, and he marks down where each of the deaths were on a map that is conveniently in the lab, and Yusuke points out that the deaths happened at in intervals of 15 minutes, and they are going in a spiral pattern. So they head to where more than likely the next one is going to happen. So when the wasp monster, I think, is about to get someone else, uh, Ichijo fires on it with his gun, but then Yusuke leaps into action by transforming into Kuuga, starts fighting the monster, and they during the fight he gets tossed, I think tossed or kicked or something like that, down a level where he grabs onto a railing below on a walkway, and in the midst of it transforms into a new green form, his Pegasus form. So yeah, and it would seem he has better hearing and everything, or just better senses in this form, because he hears something really, really high pitched, and it fucks with him. And I think he starts falling to the ground again as a result of that. Either that, or he's like really trying to hang on to the railing. I can't remember which, but yeah. I'll see in what is more than likely going to be in the recap for the next episode at the beginning. So yeah. Um, Overall, I think a decent episode. I don't understand why the girl is like, I can't remember her name for the life of me, so I'm sorry, but I can't remember, or but I can't figure why she's like insanely pissed like she seems to be, and why she just is angry that like no one is apparently um like worried about unidentified life form zero and caring about her father dying. It's like they are still looking into the unidentified life forms. It's just that the zero one hasn't showed up in a bit, and we have like several others that have. So there's more pressing matters, unfortunately. And then she just seems like really overdramatic when she says that if they don't find zero, then she'll die. I really don't know. This is like the shit would have been written and shot in 1999, um, for the 2000 release date. Um, but yeah, this shit's like kind of emo as fuck. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little forced, and I don't really understand it at all. Like I do get that the girl is in grief and everything, but like I don't know. It seems like it's been like several weeks since the first episode, unless if I'm mistaken on the timeline here. Um, so I would think that she would have her uh, moment of time to grieve for her father and everything, and be able to be a little bit more clear headed on this shit. Um, on top of that, it's just I don't know. It's also a thing of like it seems like she is really more thinking of herself and uh her her like her shit above everything else, even though and not really thinking too clearly, which I think the episode is trying to um what is the word? Trying to emphasize maybe, but like I don't really know. It just seems really dumb for her to be thinking like that. And maybe that's the point, but yeah. Um Otherwise decent episode. I kind of like the green color on Kuuga. Looks pretty good, but yeah. We shall see what it does in the next episode. So yeah. So that's about it for this podcast episode. I am enjoying my time with Kuuga thus far. It is probably the one I will finish first compared to my other ones that I'm currently doing. So yeah, especially as I go through it 7 episodes at a time. This will probably be a 7 episode like podcast series, by the way, because for the Shout Factory Blu-ray, there's 49 episodes, and each of them have 7 episodes. So, or 49 episodes, 7 discs. So each of the discs have 7 episodes. So, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't really mind watching through this stuff. Just to kind of analyze this stuff. Also, I found out through the wiki that apparently Kamen Rider Kuuga was the first series shot in 1080i. So every series from Kuuga on, from Kuuga all the way to Zets, though at some point they may have switched over to shooting in 4K. They have shot these shows in 1080p, but up until I think it's like I'm not sure what series actually. Maybe it's like Decade or maybe the series or two beforehand. They did not master the episodes in 1080i for some reason. They didn't think to future proof the show or shows. So the episodes were only mastered, I think, in 480i, but at a higher frame rate, which I will give them credit for that because higher frame rate does help with lower resolution. But yeah. Um, However, the fact that they have not gone back to remaster the series into HD with the original footage for the Blu-ray releases is and HD releases is just really weird because these are the DVD masters like put back into widescreen and upscaled to 1080p. I really don't understand that because they don't look that good, unfortunately, because of the age of the masters and everything. They don't look that good, especially when I'm watching like Toei's official uploads on their Toei Tokusatsu World official YouTube channel for Agito and Kabuto, where the masters just do not look good. They look like shit. And some people try to argue, well, they need to recomposite all the special effects work because it was mastered at 480i. I get that. The thing, though, is these shows are shot actually pretty practically, where the special effects are kept to a relative minimum. Some stuff was definitely done on CG, or not CG, green screen and everything, but that would just mean some recompositing work. The other CG elements would just need to be recomposited onto the raw shots. And then other things are done with like the morph tool and stuff, which could easily just be redone. They could have a skeleton crew at their building or headquarters or whatever in Tokyo or wherever work on recutting these episodes with the HD masters because I doubt that they didn't keep them on like external hard drives. And just use the takes and rushes that were filmed back in 1999 to 2000 and have HD versions of the episodes in 1080i or 1080p ready to go. You know, it's just really dumb. I thought that these were maybe shot like Doctor Who series 1 to 4 where they were shot in widescreen and at a slightly higher frame rate because of British TV, like being at 25 FPS because of the refresh rate of their TVs at the time that they were starting their productions and everything for TV. So they're stuck in, and they were shot digitally, so they're stuck in the standard definition format, but like or resolution. But these were shot at 1080i. They weren't saved at 1080i, but they do have the raw footage more than likely at 1080i. I don't understand why Toei doesn't spend the little bit of money that it would take to recut these episodes and redo the special effects work and stuff to do it. It's really dumb. But yeah, guys, so yeah, really not much else to say, so links in the description, all my shit, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one.